Welcome to the Mendon's 2025 Annual Town Meeting. I am going to take us out of recess now. If you're standing in the back, please come filter in. There's plenty of seats up front here, so you can stare down the select board or finance committee as you want, if you want to. Make them nice and uncomfortable as they're making their motions. But there's plenty of seating for everyone, so please come on in. So, how many people here have not been to a town meeting before? Be honest. No, this is up to you. Okay. I think you might be lying, but let's be honest with town meetings. So just to go over some ground rules really quick. The way this works is I'm going to read each of the articles. Someone will be making a motion within the scope of said article. Someone else will be seconding. Depending on the article, we'll see if the finance committee approves of it. Then we'll engage in discussion on each question. And discussion means the sponsor of the article gets to make their pitch for why they think it should be passed. People from the town are welcome to get up and discuss the article. I just ask that when you do, all your questions should be addressed to me. Not if you're referring to something someone said, please, it's the previous speaker, it's not that guy, you're not talking to them if they're in the audience. Just as you're talking, address everything to me. Please get up at each of these microphones. When I say discussion, start forming a nice orderly line. If you need someone to bring a microphone to you, please raise your hand and we'll make sure you get into the speaking queue and make sure you can get a microphone down to you. When speaking, please state your name, please state where you're from, like your address. Beyond that, please be respectful. This is a meeting where everybody gets a voice. Let everybody talk before, hold your applause till the end. Let everybody say what they're going to say. No booing, no cheering. Let's just let everybody say what they're going to say, and let everybody have a voice. Beyond that, if you'd like to reconsider a motion, it has to be somebody who was in favor of the article passing, and we'll take a vote to reconsider it. Also, we're going to be using these nice little clickers here. You should have grabbed one on your way in if you're a registered voter. They have two buttons on them, one that says yes, and one that says no. If you mind bringing up the sample article, Dan? Thank you. So the way this works is if the article's up on the screen, what I'm going to say is vote is open, and then everybody can vote. And then I'm going to say vote is closed, bang my gavel. And then I'm getting a number of people here, so I don't prematurely close any votes. That's why we do this now. But the most important thing is, at the end of the night, please return your clickers. I'm going to be mentioning this at least 4 times for the people at the front. So make sure you don't take them home with you. And I'm going to say vote is now closed. For real this time. And then you can see 123 people voted that the Celtics will go back to back. 33 people voted no. And the benefit of using the clickers is you no longer have to know which your neighbor said no. So So that's one great reason we started using them. We have a few people here tonight who are not voting residents. I'm going to state who they are and see if there's any opposition to these people being here. Anthony Steele, the Assistant Superintendent Principal for Blackstone Valley Tech High School. Tyler James, ABMI, recording the meeting. Please let him stay, because if not, we have to figure out how to record it on our own. Dylan Lindholm, the Assistant Planner. Jeremy Stoll, the Town Administrator. Katie Moxham, Assistant to the Select Board and Town Administrator. Sherry Bates, the Principal Assessor. Karis North, the Town Council. Dr. Maureen Cohen, Mendonma Upton Regional School District Superintendent. Jennifer O'Neill, Human Resources for the Town of Mendon. Dr. Michael Fitzpatrick from VBT. Isabella Genova, Town Conservation Agent. Andrew Jenrick, the Taft Public Library Director. And several minors here as well, whose names do not need to be said. Does anyone have any opposition to any of those folks joining us? Awesome. Well, thank you. Yes, and make sure, I said it once I think, this will be number 2. I'm going to bump that number up to 6 times at least tonight. Make sure you return these things. We have ways of tracking them down. Yeah.
So for those who have not used the clickers before, you have a A and a B. If you hit the wrong thing before the vote is closed, you can change your vote.
Absolutely.
The last button you push is the one that counts when the vote closes. So don't worry if you hit the wrong thing. You can go back and change it before the vote closes.
And I see how many people are here?
Roughly.
Okay, there's around 190 people here. I'm going to wait for that amount to vote before I start closing the vote. If it hangs a lot lower than that, then we'll close the vote then. But I'm going to try to make sure everybody is able to vote before I close. All right. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Also, I'm going to dispense with the reading of the warrant because we're going to have it behind us. Great. Okay, so we're going to start now, jump right into things with Article 1. We have a motion for Article 1 right behind us.
I move that the town vote that any motion or amendment to increase any monetary articles or line items as proposed by the Finance Committee presented at this town meeting shall be out of order unless such motion or amendment states the source of funding as being from available free cash or the line item or article that will be reduced by the same amount.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
And I would like to ask Jeremy Stoll, our town administrator, to speak to this, if that's all right.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm trying to share my screen up there, Dan, if you can flip it over. Well, all right, while we get this started, so my name is Jeremy Stoll, I'm the town administrator. I wanted to set the stage a little bit about where the town is coming out of fiscal 25, going into fiscal 26, before we get started talking about budget and other monetary articles tonight. It's quick, just 2 slides right here. So really, really high level. We've got cannabis revenue, local option sales tax on cannabis sales in town. We didn't budget anything in fiscal 25 because of we didn't have any experience with it, and we'll exceed $100,000 in collections on that this year. It is budgeted in 26 here. Interest and investments, again, really great kind of short-term interest rate environment for us. So $250,000 in excess revenue that the town hadn't budgeted in fiscal 25. Again, building permits, there's a lot of activity in town, additional $100,000 there. So all these things are performing really well on the revenue side. And then I said these get right-sized. So we don't go all the way up to the experiences here that wouldn't be responsible for budgeting, but we do bump these up in our revenue estimates. That gives us the ability to make some investments throughout fiscal 26 instead of waiting until the end. Then we've got some vacancies, some that aren't filled, some that have been filled but were vacant. It creates salary savings. It creates tough administrative work sometimes, but does create salary savings. And the snow and ice deficit. It snowed a lot more this year than it has in the last 4 or 5 years. So a lot of salting, a lot of time, a lot of plowing. So that is being proposed to be funded with free cash in fiscal 26, or at the end of fiscal 25. So as we talk about free cash, we've got 7 free cash articles here in order, ranging from $557,000 up to $93,000. So there's still remaining free cash that was unspent after special town meeting. So there's $414,000 in change, and should all of these articles pass, the town would still have $122,000 in free cash. So we all come back here in the fall after fiscal 25 has been closed, and we know what our number is at that point. That $122,000 will be added into that total for available for special town meeting to spend on one-time uses. So I just wanted everyone to have the context of what we're talking about tonight. The town's in a great spot financially. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of investments that have yet to be made. But I want folks to be comfortable with the free cash part of this.
Thank you. And to be clear, we're voting on right now is just that any motion or amendment to increase monetary items or articles will be out of order unless we have a funding source specified. We're not voting on any other finance articles right now. Right. All right, so any further discussion on this? Okay, I'm going to open the vote.
Mr. Moderator, before the vote closes, the Finance Committee recommends that the town approve Article 1.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to close the vote now. Okay, that passes. Right. So for the next article and several others, we're going to do something. We're trying to do something called a consent calendar, which is when we vote them all essentially as one. That's going to be Articles 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 19, and 20. Our thought is these are all related items that we feel will be sailed through relatively easy, so we can save ourselves some time and get you out of here faster so you can enjoy your Friday night. How does that sound, everyone? That being said, I will accept a motion for that.
I move to take Articles 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 19, and 20 out of order and place them in the consent calendar.
Thank you very much. Now, any discussion just on putting these in the consent calendar? And this does require a 2/3 vote of those present to just put it in the consent calendar. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to open the vote. coming up on 160 for a while now, so I'm going to close the vote. Every time I say that, people start voting. I'm going to close the vote. Okay, it passes with a 2/3 majority, 149 to 13. So we're now going to vote on these all as a consent calendar. Do we have any discussion beyond? Is that the slides that were just presented? Or is there further discussion? From the select? Oh, no further discussion. Does the Finance Committee have recommendations for each of those articles?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support all of the articles in the consent calendar.
Thank you very much. All right, any further discussion? Okay, I am going to open the vote. Okay. I'm going to close the vote now. That passes. All those articles pass by majority. Perfect. Article 3. I'll get those signed motions in a second.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $557.90 to pay a bill of a prior year in the same amount from Community Solar.
Second. You have a second? Did I hear a second? Yep. Okay. Discussion.
Those are just blank pages, Mr. Moderator.
Oh, I thought you were putting them there for me.
Jeremy?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, so this was a bill of the prior year, as it stated. It was actually in the special town meeting vote, and there was a transposition of numbers, so we weren't able to pay this bill. So it's an obligation already due, and it's an administrative error on our part.
Thank you. Any further discussion? And this is a 4/5 vote because it's a bill of the prior year. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to ask the Finance Committee if they would like to weigh in on this.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 3.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other further discussion, I'm going to open the vote. All right, I am going to close the vote now. Motion passes by 4/5. All right. Trucking along here. Article 15.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sums of money as read under Article 15 to defray fiscal 2026 changes and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for the ensuing year.
Second.
All right, this is the fun part. We're going to read through all of the line items of the budget so everybody has all of the details. If there is a line item that wants to be held, call it out as I read it, and we will review that as part of the discussion. Moderator, department budget, $100. Select board, $288,250. Finance committee, $3,000. Reserve fund, $76,114.13. Accountant, $85,450. Assessors, $87,350. Finance department, $168,600. Legal department, $80,000. Human resources, $42,800. Information technology, $219,500. Town clerk, $101,825. Elections, $15,550. Conservation, $85,950. Planning, $81,050. Zoning Board of Appeals, $5,400. Land use, $3,050. Public buildings, $210,700. Police, $2,042,700. Fire, $1,471,700. Inspector, $156,650. Emergency management, $29,250. Animal control, $29,750. Forestry, $55,000. Dispatch, $159,100. MURSD, $11,096,827. Blackstone Valley Regional Tech, $1,507,571. Norfolk Aggie, $373,649.
All right, thank you.
Page 2. Highway grounds and facilities, $870,150. Snow and ice removal, $194,000. Street lighting, $43,000. Waste collection, $29,550. Water distribution, $36,600. Cemetery, $100. Board of Health, $116,950. Council on Aging, $195,750. Veteran Services, $42,150. Library, $345,900. Recreation, $22,500. Parks, $91,020. Historical Commissions, $4,000. Retirement of debt, $700,000. Interest on long-term debt, $174,145. State assessments and charges, $8,228. Retirement and pension contribution, $1,159,488. Workers' compensation, $27,000. Unemployment compensation, $33,000. Health insurance, $1,475,000. Life insurance, $27,500. Medicare, $65,000. Other insurance, $135,000. Liability insurance, $138,500 for a total budget of $24,411,417.13.
Right, does the Finance Committee support this?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 15.
Thank you very much. Was that the discussion or the motion?
That was the
That was the motion. Okay, discussion.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I just wanted to highlight for some folks, I wrote in the report, but it fully funds all our level service, fully funds our labor contracts with a 3% cost of living adjustment, has some addition on staff, has some additions into grounds and facilities maintenance, some additional library hours, and then some funds in reserve for what we know are going to be increases in out years. So we didn't get to fund everything. Select board's sick of me saying it, that we can afford anything, just not everything. So the board had some difficult choices here. But I think, like I said before, the town's in a solid financial position and is making investments in its future. I was proud to be a part of this process for that one.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Any further discussion from the town? Okay. We have another person joining us. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to open the vote, seeing no further discussion. I'm going to close the vote. Motion passes. Article 16.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Water Enterprise Fund for fiscal 2026. Salaries, $5,200. Contracted services, $15,000. Expenses, $4,200. Water Infrastructure Repair and Replacement Fund, $21,336. Purchase of water, $165,000, for a total of $220,736. And for that $220,736 to be raised as follows. Department receipts, $207,351, and retained earnings of $13,385, and I so move.
Second.
I just want to point out the motion on the screen is different. Retained earnings 20,000. So is the motion you made the incorrect number? Okay, so there we go. So we're in agreement 13,385 is correct.
Yeah, did I say?
Okay.
Did I say 4,000 or 14? Oh. Expenses, $14,200. Yeah.
Right. All right, do I have a second? Discussion, Finance Committee, do you support this?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 16.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Mr. Moderator, just a reminder to everyone, this is entirely on user fees on folks on the water system. This is not supported with tax dollars.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion from the town? I'm going to open the vote, if not. Vote is open. I am going to close the vote. Motion passes. All right, Article 17.
I move that the town vote to set the fiscal 2026 revolving fund limits in accordance with MGL Chapter 53E1/2 as follows. Library revolving fund and limit on spending. Library 6,000, Planning Board 30,000, Highway 25,000, Conservation 25,000, Parks 250,000, Fire Department 10,000, Title V Board of Health 25,000, and Police Department 15,000. And I so move.
Thank you very much. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Finance Committee.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends the town support Article 17.
Thank you very much. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, for everyone's reminder, this is also not tax dollars. These are supported by user fees in the various programs. They are limits on spending, so we can spend up to that in each individual year. Parks is the only one that has changed from the prior fiscal year. That is mainly the summer programs, supported by the fees of the folks in that program, and then the spending is the staff and the supplies needed for the program. But that's the only change on the limit from fiscal 2025.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the town? Okay. I don't see anyone. I'm going to open the vote. Now I'm going to close the vote. Okay, motion passes. Very close to unanimous, but not quite. One day. Not going to be today, though. All right. Now, Article 21. Now the ones you're all here for. Okay, the good stuff now.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Article 18. We don't want to forget about trash.
No. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the curbside trash and recycling program enterprise fund for fiscal 2026. Disposal, $147,000. Collection, $526,900. Administration, $4,500. For a total of $678,400, and for that sum to be raised as departmental charges for services, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Finance Committee?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 18.
I mean, I know you guys are reading it, but I figure I should check in anyways.
I appreciate it.
Any further discussion, or discussion in general?
Mr. Moderator, this is an enterprise fund for solid waste and recycling. Town meeting will recall last year this fund was created, money was appropriated into it, the money was also appropriated on the general fund. So in the fall, we came back and rescinded the appropriation into the enterprise fund, and it continued to happen in the general fund. What fiscal 26 does, if you go through the detail of fiscal 26 budget, you'll see that there is no trash revenue on the general fund. It is all in this fund here. So like the water enterprise fund, this has no tax dollars associated with it. It's just supported by your trash and recycling fee. So if you're not on the program, your dollars don't go towards this.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any further discussion from the town? Seeing none, I'm going to open the vote. Okay, closing vote. Article passes. Article 21.
I move that the town hereby approves a $10,675,452 borrowing authorized by the Mendon Regional School District for the purpose of paying costs of roof replacement at the Nipmuc Regional High School located at 90 Pleasant Street, Upton, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, the project, which proposed repair project would materially extend the useful life of the school and preserve an asset that otherwise is capable of supporting the required educational program, and for which the district has applied for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, said amount to be expended under the direction of the school committee. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and if the MSBA's Board of Directors votes to invite the district to collaborate with the MSBA on this proposed repair project, any project costs the district incurs in excess of any grant that may be approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the district, and that if invited to collaborate with the MSBA on the proposed repair project, the amount of borrowing authorized by the district shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the district and the MSBA. The approval is expressly conditioned upon a vote of the town to exclude the amounts required to repay the town's allocable share of this debt from the limitation on local property taxes set forth in General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Proposition 2.5.
Second.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have something to say about this?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 21.
Thank you very much. Discussion?
So I believe
We have a presentation from our regional school district. Have the floor.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Maureen Cohen. I'm the superintendent for the mendonma Regional School District. This is Jay Byer, who's the Director of Finance and Operations, and we're going to do a brief presentation of all three articles at once right now. As you know, we're coming forward with the article that was just read about the roof. For Nipmuc, we have facility project that is impacting all of our schools, and we have Fields and Ground project that will be coming forward that impacts NISCO and Nipmuc. All right, this is the best slide because it gives you an overview of the history of our schools. If you're not familiar with the age of our schools, of course, right now we're in the oldest school, Missile Hill Middle School, which is 65 years old, and Nipmuc is at 29 years old, built in 1996. And for some people, they think that the two elementary schools are brand new because those who have lived in town, it feels like yesterday when we built them, but it's actually been close to 22 years. When you look at the timeline on the bottom, it's to emphasize the point that about every 35 to 30 years or so, we've had major capital investments that we need to do, just like you do in your homes, that you need to have replacement of items, and that's what we're bringing forward today. This slide is an overview of the decade of work that we've been talking about the need for upgrades in our fields as well as our facilities. And I know we've received some questions whether or not we're just been starting this the last couple of years. It's my 4th year as superintendent. It was the first thing that was brought to me when I came on board was the need to improve our fields and facilities. But looking back in the 12 years that I've been in the district, we've been working on it, and you can see we had former field updates. We had a facility assessment that we did in 2022, and that was by Habib and Associates. They came up with $90 million worth of improvements that are needed at different ranges. Don't worry, we're not bringing $90 million forward because we formed a capital planning subcommittee that's been working the last 3 years diligently on reducing that and prioritizing that to the approximately $30 million across the projects that we're bringing forward to tonight. And I'll speak to the MSBA in the next slide as well. We also, because I have to show you some of the older pictures of the buildings and the work that needs to be done, we might sometimes get a question of, well, are you maintaining your facilities? And we have an incredible maintenance team, and they are phenomenal, and they work really hard, but there are, because of the age of the buildings and facilities, we just need to replace some of the items. And this slide illustrates for you that we are adhering to our best practices in school maintenance. With the addition of a Homeland Security assessment, we have some security issues in there. We have a very comprehensive maintenance plan that was just approved by the state. That's referenced there. We've received input, and we have a strong strategic plan. So we have, hopefully you received the flyer on the way in that does the overview of the capital projects that I'm going to outline. The first project that was just mentioned in the warrant article is the roof project, which will be related to shingle roof, the EPDM membrane roof, and rooftop air handlers and HVAC. A really important point for you to know is that because we were fortunate enough to be accepted into the MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority Accelerated Repair Program, that's a lot of words, they only do this every 2 years, and we were accepted into the program for the roof. We need to pass at both town meetings, it passed at Upton last night, but both town meetings and both warrant ballot votes in order for us to maintain the process in MSBA, which we will have the good news of receiving the 52.26% reimbursement from the state. If it were not to pass, we wouldn't remain in the pipeline, and as a result, we have a roof that's 32 years old or so and still leaking. The roof project, it's really a good picture here so you can get a sense of the Nipmuc roof and the shingles and the needs. And just to mention again, it's 28 years old, and when you replace the roof, it's typically 20 to 30 years and we need to do that. This is an example of when you walk in the back door. I walk in the back door in Nipmuc, and I see a bucket in the hallway because it's always leaking right there if we rained. I turn my head to the left. That's the music room. There's always a tarp in the music room, and it's leaking everywhere, and we move the tarp around. I walk into the main office. I just took that picture of the tile, and that's the leaking in the main office. And in our social studies hallway, it will be just raining water through the grates. And that's the state of today. Jay is going to speak to all of the cost slides here.
Hi everybody, Jay Byer, 2 Barrows Road. So the overall cost for this entire project is about $10.6 million to do all of the work. The reimbursable part would be the roof part itself, not the HVAC equipment, which that MSBA does not consider a roof repair. But we have to remove that stuff in order to replace the roof. There's no point in putting 30-year-old equipment on there that's outdated and antiquated that we can't get parts for. We anticipate the MSBA reimbursement to be $4.3 million. The total cost of the taxpayer should be around $6.3 million. That's what we're looking at.
So when we turn to the facilities project, it does impact all of the schools. The first element that we need to replace are building management systems. As you can see, these are a few of the examples. We have obsolete systems. If you don't know what a building management system is, essentially it is the brains of our heating, cooling, and air exchange. And at NISCO and at NIPMUC, we have unavailable parts in a failing pneumatic system, and it's really an urgent need for us and one of our top needs in the facility. Additionally, as a result of our facilities assessment, as well as our homeland security assessment, we have a focus on safety and security. On the left, you have an example of a key card access system that we do not currently have that is part of our proposal. It will be able to have a single point of access and increase the security for all of our schools. On the right, you have my second favorite picture in the whole series of pictures. This is a Misco Hill paging system. It is antiquated, it needs to be replaced, but when you think about safety and security, we need to know if there's an emergency in the building that we can be in touch with everyone in the building. And currently we were advised to replace all of our systems across all the buildings. Here we have a number of items at NIPMUC. When you sit in the NIPMUC auditorium, may look like a nice picture right there from afar, but when you get up closer, looking at almost 30-year-old seats, about 50 of them are broken. That's an example of it there. There are ripped carpet we maintain the carpets, but they're 30 years old, and you can see the rips all in the auditorium. Additionally, that's a classroom, ripped carpet as well that we would need to replace as part of the project. On the right, that's a picture of the data cabling. And we replaced the data cabling here a number of years ago. And what it means is, if you go back to 1996 when NIPMUC was built, we're still using the data cabling coming in to support all of our devices. At NIPMUC, that's approximately 2,000 to 2,400 devices every day on cable from 1996. It just isn't working anymore with our equipment. This is my favorite picture, and this is in the building that we're in right now. On the left, you have our 1958 oil-filled transformer. I usually don't have to say much more than show you the picture, but that is linked to the right to our switchgear. And on the next slide, I'll talk about how we have a need for a generator, but we can't have a generator with the old switchgear, with the old transformer, and it is time for us to have a replacement of all of these systems, and I'll say no more on that. What's really important for us here, and for those of you, you're all here from Mendon, this could be a building for emergency management, but it can't right now because it doesn't have a standby generator. But what it means for schools is that if the power goes out, and it does, we have power that comes in from Mendon, comes in from Upton, a line goes down, we're out, it's darkness, and there's no water, there's no flushing, and we cannot keep students in the building very long for middle school in those circumstances. And that's why, if you're a parent of Misco children, sometimes we have to cancel this school and others don't, so I apologize for that. But this would help solve that. Misco Hill bathrooms, just so you're aware, when we built Misco, when we did the renovation for Misco, it was meant to be an elementary school at that time, and so the bathroom fixtures are lower to the ground, as you can see in the pictures. And we have, quickly aged here, and obviously need to update that. We do what we can, but we can't do the fixtures without this project. Those lockers are from the original building. When they did the renovation, all the other lockers were done, but the back lockers were not. And on the right, we've been working on the flooring through some grants we got, federal grants, but we still need to replace the rest of the flooring. When we jump to Memorial and Clough Elementary School, we have the window sealants that are drying up over all of the buildings, and it's leaking into the larger spaces. And if you look at the curving in the sidewalks, I took that picture in the middle. about 3 weeks ago, walking up and entering Clough Elementary School. We do fix it, our maintenance crew is always patching it, but it needs to be redone entirely.
So I get all the fun stuff, the money. All right, so this total of all these projects we've all put together about a little under $11.6 million. You can see how it's broken up by 4 schools. Obviously, the largest amount is Nipmuc and Nisco Hill. Clough and Memorial are a little bit less. Okay? One of our big supporters right here. Anyway, so total cost $11.6 million. When we get toward the end of this, we'll talk about the tax impact of all of this put all together.
And finally, we have the Fields and Grounds project. I'll first talk about Nisco, then the back fields at Nipmuc, and then the front fields at Nipmuc to give you that overview. This is drone footage that was recently taken within the last month of the fields at Nisco. This is the area that we would be redoing. It's not the upper area where it's like the football field. We have irrigation that's in pretty good shape. It's this whole area. This is used for everything. I'm sure you've seen some posts online were being sent around, but it's softball, baseball, field hockey, gym classes, soccer, about every youth sport, flag football. And it is the original fields that have never been redone. And so they're really highly compacted at this point. And it also doesn't have an irrigation system. And we would need to regrade and put irrigation in and renovate that. And there are tons of safety concerns as a result of the state of those fields. When we jump over to Nipmuc, we have similar safety concerns and uneven terrain and divots and holes. And lots of, I'll talk about accessibility in a second. A lot of people might not know that we have this incredible track and field team at the high school. They're amazing. They don't have a track. They run hurdles in the cafeteria. I couldn't believe it, and it's not even the length that you have to run. We have to rent out other schools and fields in order to, go for our meets. We can never host a meet. We can never get revenue for meets. And our students just don't have a track. And also our community doesn't have one as well. We also do not have lighting at Nipmuc, which is highly unusual for a high school to not have any lighting at a school. Usually you have multiple areas of lighting at a high school. Obviously, it means that the utilization decreases of use of these fields because once it's dark, you can't use the fields. If we have the lighting, not only can we increase the field usage for all the youth sports as well, but we'd also be able to bring the communities together for events. Because if you have lights at a field, a main field, then you have Friday night lights, you have Thursday night lights, you have Wednesday night, and you bring the community together, and it's a huge revenue. So community building and revenue building. And finally, lack of accessibility is really huge. If you look at the picture up there with the water, that's leading to the back fields. And we will be paving that as part of easy access to the back. So like if I were to bring my mom, who in a walker, who's 81, to the backfield, she can't go to the backfield. If I want to get an emergency vehicle to the back, they won't be able to get back as quickly. They do get back, they're amazing. But we'd be able to get them back more quickly. So what does it look like? If you look at all of our fields at Nipmuc, we would have a walking path that we would build all around that. That would be about 1 mile is the goal for that around all of the fields. It would also be the emergency access, so we wouldn't have to drive vehicles across the middle of the fields. When you go to this, you can see close up on the back fields. In the upper left is the baseball field, and the bottom right is the softball field. The softball field would be turned to the right and reoriented because where it hits on that edge there, it overlaps with baseball and the trees. It's not regulation right now. It would be moved back, and as well, we have to redo the irrigation. We have irrigation back there, but a lot of the spigots have been broken over the years. The Nipmuc front field, I know a lot of people get focused on this, but this is where the track would go. I'll show you a picture in a second to wrap this up. The lighting would be here as well with the artificial turf, which will increase utilization, and you wouldn't have the damage that you have in the field right there that you can see from all the goals in the middle. And you can see where irrigation isn't working, some of the spigots in the areas. Also, if you're up close, it's not great for ADA compliance and being able to view it. So if you're coming in a wheelchair, you actually can't really view anything. We would have on the right-hand side on Pleasant Street is where we'd have bleachers coming down on that side. I'll show you an image in 1 second. And that's where you'd be able to view it, like some of our neighboring towns have something like that. You may not know that when Nipmuc was built, it did not have a lacrosse team, it did not have a football team, so it doesn't have a stadium type of field area that you would typically have at a high school. And what that means is, so there isn't the press box or podium box, and they're standing on, you can see the storage units right now. This is a design. You can see how we'd be turning the field in order to have the regulation track there, and then we can host MIA events if we have regulation tracks and fields. And then the blue outline is the walking path, and you would also have additional parking that we can hopefully get closer to the fields because some of the parking is pretty far away from the fields.
Back to the money. All right, so the total cost for all of these projects is approximately $12 million. The majority of this obviously is at Nipmuc. It's about $900,000 for Misco Hill. We do hope to utilize both towns' CPA committees have agreed to apply some of their CPA funding toward offsetting the tax burden as far as debt service in future years, and we'll show you a little bit more detail about that. But this project's about a total of $12 million. Put all three projects together. All three projects after the MSBA reimbursement is just under $30 million. I know that sounds like a lot compared to what we spent to build the high school 30 years ago, but schools cost way more than they do that. If you put it all together, thanks. All right, so everybody wants to know what's it going to cost me, right? That's the big question here. On the left side is the Mendon thing, and we have verified that our calculations are correct. So for starters, all of you can go onto our district website. We have a tax calculator there. Look at your most recent tax bill, look at your assessed value, put it in, pick the projects you're looking to see what it's going to cost you, and you'll get a dollar value. But in total, the average house in Mendon is about $650,000 in value. It's going to cost a little under $400 a year for all of these projects if approved. As far as the CPA, the offset, both towns have indicated a possibility of funding approximately $100,000 to offset the tax impact, and you can see where that would kind of fall based on the value of your house, which would reduce your tax bill by a little bit. And then we're happy to answer any questions that anybody has about it.
And be clear, Article 21, the one we're on right now, is the first project that we're from.
Yes. Yes, so these are three separate motions. Mostly the MSBA project, they require to be voted separate from anything else. And then we were requested from both the Select Board and the Finance Committee to separate the fields from the facilities. So we've got three votes that we need positive votes here tonight, and then next week at the town meeting, or at the town meeting.
Yeah. Do you want to come?
I don't mind coming right here. So if you could have any one of these three projects, you can't have all three.
Yeah, could you come up to the microphone?
Oh, sure. Sorry. I usually talk loud enough.
And also, if you could say your name and address.
You got it.
Thank you.
Robert Kovac, I live at 19 Colonial Drive. If you could have any one of these three projects, you can't have all three. Which one would you want?
Okay. Yeah, just a reminder, please address all questions to me.
I'm sorry. One more again?
I'm happy to answer.
You're fine, just going forward.
I'm happy to answer the question. The roof has always been the number one project because of the opportunity for MSBA reimbursement. We do not want to lose that. And you need a roof, everyone knows that you need a roof. But I will add, even though it's not the question you asked, that we prioritized $90 million down to this. And we took a lot of things out that we know still would be good for our schools. And we prioritized what we need, and this is what I would say is what we need, and I do support all of it equally, as much as it. But the roof is, we have to have it.
That's the main thing. Any other further discussion from the townspeople? Okay, I'm gonna move to a vote with these nice clickers, and I'm going to ask that you remember to turn in at the end of the night. Don't forget. And the vote is now open on these clickers that you need to turn in at the end of the night. Just behind you. Wave. And just a reminder, this does need to pass by 2/3 since it is borrowing. It does not.
This requires a majority vote. This only requires a majority vote because the town is not borrowing the school district, you're just authorizing us to borrow.
Eric?
Okay,
We verified this with SBA and non.
that's fine.
Okay.
I'll accept that.
We're gonna,
So, Mr. Moderator, in order to fix that, we're gonna need to close this vote and start a new vote.
well, so how about this? If we close the vote and it passes by a simple majority, I'll be able to tell that, and we're good. All right, vote is closed.
Sorry, it's very slow.
It's a jump scare for everyone. Okay, I think 195 is a simple majority, so I think we're good. All right. Article 22. This one is for the facilities project, correct? Do you have any further discussion beyond that?
We're happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Any discussion from the townspeople? And can you read your motion as well?
I move that the town hereby approves $11,559,399 borrowing authorized by the Mendon Upton Regional School District for the purpose of paying costs of purchasing equipment and various upgrades and remodeling projects in and for the district's 4 schools, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto. This approval is expressly conditioned upon a vote of the town to exclude the amounts required to repay the town's eligible share of this debt from the limitation on local property taxes set forth in GL Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Proposition 2.5.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Second. And do I have the FinCom weighing in on this and a retroactive weighing in on the last one as well?
Mr. Moderator, we weighed in on Article 21, and on Article 22, we recommend that the town support Article 22.
Thank you. I forgot if I asked you or not on the last one, so I apologize.
Regarding more than one.
And it looks like you might have some discussion from the town.
Dane Val, 3 Kings Way. I was just curious, as you were coming up with your budget, did you look at the overall anticipated budget for the schools as a whole, and whether you anticipated up in the coming year on whether or not you were going to have the need for maybe a Prop 2.5 override as we look at what's going on in the economy and whether or not there could be issues going forward with, amounts of money being granted to whether it's the state or to schools?
Can you answer on that?
Yep, I can try. Yeah, the operational budget, we feel that these projects would actually help offset some of the costs that we're spending on trying to maintain equipment that we can't get parts for. As far as the future and the operational budget in the future, it's always a concern every year, the amount of revenue that we have coming in on the state level, on the local level. We're not considered a poor town, so we don't get a lot of state aid.
But you don't know whether or not you're looking at where if you look to sit there and say spend $450 a year for one. I think we mentioned how long is the budget override for?
These borrowings would be a 20-year bond. So the way we would do this is we do the first 2 years as what's called bond anticipation notes, which are interest-free loans, 1-year loans, just to get yourself through construction. Then we go out and borrow it as a 20-year bond at that point.
$450 for 20 years. I guess my last question is, I feel like only less than a year ago, we were sitting here and basically as a town, we said we don't have enough money and we can't afford for the senior center, seniors to have a new senior center. That, we can't afford that. But now we're sitting here saying, oh, we need this for the kids. And keep in mind, I have no kids and I'm not anywhere close to being a senior. So I find it interesting that we said, no, we can't have a senior center. And to be clear, I thought the senior center was a little bit exorbitant. But now we're saying that, we can afford this, and we can't afford that. So I just think it's an interesting comment. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the town?
Mr. Moderator, just a point of clarification for folks. When we talk about these gross numbers, keep in mind that they are total project costs, and the costs repayable from Mendon residents will be will be based upon where the project's located, and the enrollment in those schools, you can roughly think of it as half. So when we talk about an $11 million project, it's $5.5 million unmanned.
Thank you. Any further clarification?
Just further clarification, because I didn't mention it before, we've been also working, I know some of you might be familiar with the mendonma Community Project, MUCP for short. If, when we get to the latter field project, we would be able to go forward and request fundraising as well. And some of our estimates related to tariffs, we had to estimate a little bit higher, but we're hoping things will come down. And also, it was strategic in us coming forward and working in answer to the previous gentleman's question. We were coming off of debt coming off for previous buildings that we had, and we were looking at that in order to lessen the burden to the taxpayers, which has always been our goal, but also meeting the needs of the school.
Further discussion?
Mr. Moderator, one other item of clarity. The decision to have a budgetary operational override for the school is not set by the district. They provide a local contribution expectation of the town. It is up to the committees up here to decide how that gets funded. That can be funded through a Proposition 2.5 operational override for the budget. It has nothing to do with the school making that decision.
Thank you.
Robert Kovacs again, 19.
Thank you.
Got it. Closer? We good?
Everybody here?
Thank you. So I guess I was typing in my calculator. You said $450 a household for 22 years. That's what $10,000 each we're being asked to pay. And then I guess my other question is, do we have any 2.5 overrides coming off the books? If anybody knows.
Do you mean 2.5 override and or debt exclusion?
Yeah, so do we have anything coming off the books that's going to offset this additional $450 a year for the next 20 to 22 years we're all being asked?
Let's see if we can get an answer on that.
So, Mr. Moderator, that debt has rolled off. There was a large maturity when the senior center was initially proposed. So there has been a decrease in the town's excluded debt. So just so we're all working with the same vocabulary, an operational override means we increase the base amount as to which 2.5% is applied every year, and that stays. A debt exclusion is an increase in additional marginal tax that only exists as long as the bonds are outstanding and we have debt service on it. So when the debt goes away, the additional tax goes away. So that rolled off 2 years ago, and that was the presentation and the discussion to townsfolk about the marginal increase in taxes for the Mendon Senior Center was because so much had rolled off.
Is there anything else being rolled off in the next 1 to 5 years?
The next big drop off is in 2030.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I think we have more discussion from the school district.
Yeah, just one clarification. As far as the debt service, the first couple of years when I said they're 1-year bond anticipation notes, the assessment to the towns would be minimal, probably less than $20,000 or $30,000. It's just interest on what you're borrowing to pay the contractors to do the construction.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Moderator, just to weigh in on that as well. So they're not going to go out, schools aren't going to go out on July 1 and borrow $30 million or $11.5 million here because they don't need it. So it's strategic to not unnecessarily pay interest on borrowed money that you don't quite yet need.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I don't see any. Okay. All right, I'm going to open the vote. Declare this is a simple majority. And I am going to close the vote now. Which passes by simple majority. Okay, Article 23. This one is for the fields.
I move that the town hereby approves a $12,002,785 borrowing authorized by the Mendon Upton Regional School District for the purpose of paying costs of renovating and constructing outdoor recreational facilities, press box, concession stand, bathrooms, and buildings at the district's Nipmuc School and renovating and construction outdoor recreational facilities at the district's Visco School, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto. This approval is expressly conditioned upon a vote of the town to exclude the amounts required to repay the town's allocable share of this debt from the limitation on local property taxes set forth in General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Proposition 2.5.
Thank you. Do we have a FinCom recommendation?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 23.
Thank you very much. Discussion beyond these slides? No? Okay. Discussion from the town. All right. I'm going to open the vote.
Wait, 15 years for this moment. Only 15 years. First time we talked about Sheffield was 4 years ago. We have a break to an actual
Vote is closing. Vote is closed. Thank you, guys. Please, if you are leaving, make sure you turn in your clicker. We will hunt you down.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening to me.
What's that? Yeah, he's not. I was a head coach.
Thank you very much. All right. Article 24, CPC. Is that mic on? Is the right side mic on? Okay. Thank you.
I move that the town transfer $200,000 to the community conservation budget account to fund a portion of the fiscal 2026 amended upper school district debt associated with the outdoor recreation. Second.
FinCom?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 24.
Thank you. Discussion? This is related to the last.
Yes. My God at 32 Wood Drive. I'm the select board member on the community preservation, and what we wanted to do is defray the tax burden. Stepping on. We wanted to help defray the tax burden for the taxpayers by annually allocating $100,000 to defray some of the debt obligation. The thought being is that this project has a lot of CPC eligibility work, where other capital projects do not. So the idea is to move $100,000 annually with a vote at town meeting. So we'll vote this every year, put it into an account, bank it, so that we have the flexibility to offset that debt. So previous speaker said the first couple of years probably very minimal debt, but we'll bank the money. So if we have a larger debt service in outer years, we can actually use this account to pay that off. So it's a great use of CPC funds. We've done it in other projects, like the police station, et cetera. So we'd like to go forward and allocate this money to an account that use.
Thank you. Any townspeople discussion? Anyone in the audience? No? Yes? Yes.
Gary Campbell, 103 Providence Street. You said something interesting in that this would be an annual allocation and budget. For how long?
The expectation is we'll take that vote for as long as the debt obligation is out there.
Would you state that here? You know, shouldn't that be stated that there is a fixed term on these and it coincides with the specific.
And then, are you saying that they're gonna take this vote every year?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that we'd have to come back each year for this, is what I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I think I stated that just to give everybody a sense that we intend this to be an ongoing obligation, but that obligation can't be guaranteed until we take a vote. So.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
And I just wanted to clarify that this isn't in addition, this is like a help tax here, what you pay every year.
Mike Rager, 16 Colonial Drive. There are lots of articles that we need to vote on every single year in recurring fashion, so this is not anything different or anything new from other methods that we use within the warrant articles. I would also like to personally just throw my backing behind this because I think this is a great use of CPA funds, a way to finally reduce tax burden, reduce things coming out of your wallet versus removing land from our tax base and removing revenue from our budget. So I think this is a great use of CPA funds.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'm going to open the vote. I have a sense that there's going to be a lot less people voting now. Okay. I'm going to close the vote. All right, motion passes. Article 25. You're good to go.
Eric Hodge, 3 Bay Street, member of the planning board. I move that the town vote to amend the Mendon zoning bylaws, Article 5, Section 505, the age-restricted mixed-use overlay district, and corresponding maps include 3 North Ave, which is parcel number 81930, and 6 Milford Street, 817760.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Do we have a slide for this?
Yes. Contacts.
Yeah. Thank you.
My daughter, 32 Wood Drive. Just wanted to go through a couple slides to give context. For many of you, this is not the first time you've probably seen this type of proposal for this particular parcel. And again, I do not have the clip, so if you could just move the slides for me, that'd be great. So first and foremost, the objective of this article is to actually zone it in a way that's going to give us an ability to understand what our opportunities are for this particular parcel, what can it be used for, what are people willing to work on it, buy it, sell it, what have you. What it won't do on this vote is actually predetermine the exact nature of what it's going to be. So the select board's really looking in conjunction with the planning board for the opportunity to, for lack of a better term, market this. Let's see what we have. We've invested a lot of assets into this particular parcel. We'd like to go out and see what, which needs of the town it can address. So with that, Dan, flip the slide. So the story. So we purchased this over 20 years ago, or started the process of purchasing this parcel. So the FEMA property, the Oak Taft Orchard. It was, in things I've read, it was to be a 40B housing development, large scale. So we had the right of first refusal because it was a 61A parcel, so we chose to purchase it. And when we executed it on the floor at town meeting, the reasoning was what you see in that second bullet. Identify open space preservation, future municipal purposes, affordable housing, residential and commercial development as its potential intended uses. So that's really laid the groundwork, and a lot of these discussions over the last 20 years have been, are we actually abiding by the original
intent for the purchase. So as we went ahead, we did start to carve off pieces, if you will. So as many of you know, the solar field that actually is generating quite a bit of revenue on an annual basis for the town, a back parcel, and as you've seen, there's a self-storage commercial development right on 16 that has recently been built and opened, and that was done by selling a piece of the parcel to that developer. Next slide, please. So when we purchased it, the price $3.4 million, given principal and interest, we invested in the neighborhood of $4.7 million to purchase this land. That was 20 years ago. In 2015, we went ahead and leased a parcel for solar. That generates approximately $100,000 a year to our operating budget. So going back to the earlier discussion tonight, when we were talking about operational overrides and costs and our ability to afford things, that's what we're really looking to do here, is understand what are our opportunities to generate more revenue for the town, whether it be operational, capital planning, etc. In 22, we sold that commercial development for the self-storage for approximately $400,000. We have actually taken that money and already started to reinvest that into supplementary road work. So if you live on Newellville Road, you're probably very happy with the state of Newellville Road. I think North Bridge is another road that's been recently done, and I would look at Harvard Avenue East in terms of major repaving, reconstruction. That would have been able to done had we not made the capital investment we're talking about here. And so in 20, as we see it today, we have one last parcel of two. That parcel is the larger, which is approximately 20 acres. And it doesn't have a defined use. But the good thing is it's an asset to the town. So as I sit here on the select board, and I hear discussion on the floor of we need more commercial property tax. We need more housing. We have a housing production plan. We need diversified or affordable housing so that if you want to downsize, you're not forced out of Mendon. You can actually downsize and actually stay in Mendon. So these are some of the things we're talking about. These are things we've heard. And what we're asking you to do is look to this article so that we actually have an opportunity as the select board, the planning board, et cetera, to explore these options based on the feedback and the questions we're getting from all of you, the part of town meeting or on the street. And one more slide, Dan. So, really, so it's on needs and opportunities, master plan, that top section, the commercial tax base, reducing reliance on residential property tax as a means to fund municipal operations, huge opportunity, housing stock, capital investment funding. We have been lucky to have a significant amount of federal funds, which are no longer available, to do quite a bit of investment. We have a capital planning committee now. We have a 5-year capital plan. The last step of that is to identify sources of funding that capital plan. This is potentially one of those. And last but not least, it's a parcel the town owns, so if we have a municipal building need, we have a plan. So we're not precluding that possible use. What we're saying is, let's see what all the potential opportunity is to determine what's the best use of that municipal property to address all of our needs. So, as a way of comping, give an idea of people what we're talking about, as I mentioned, the commercial self-storage unit sold 10 acres for $400,000. The parcel we're looking at now is 20 acres approximately. ARM, age of stick mixed-use development, that's the district overlay I'm talking about. We have one that's in the process of being built, as you can see in that bullet, that based on estimates for that development, and this is where I believe the golf driving range is, you can see by that, based on the units going in there, the development of land, increase in property tax, we're possibly looking at anywhere from $150,000 up to $200,000 in annual revenue to the municipal budget. So I'm not saying that this is going to happen with this new parcel. What I'm asking is that we vote to rezone this so that we can explore these opportunities. No action will be taken aside from what I call marketing. You cannot move forward and execute a project without coming back to this group. So that's really a clear point because it's nothing's been predefined. But we want to bring back to all of you is what our opportunities are. We can make it actually a rational decision.
Right.
Discussion from townspeople. Okay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Grant Barthel at 50 Asylum Street. I just wanted to ask, if we pass this, what will the actual rules be about how a decision would be made? About like who would actually be able to do it, and would the town have further input into it, or would it be just decisions made by town boards?
You have an answer on that?
Just want to make sure we get the right answer.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I just can't read it. It's too small.
Just clarify.
Please, we have somebody speaking.
The process would work like this. If we were to put an RFP out there, we need to come back to this body and get the authorization to go forward with the RFP. We would get, they would come in, we would then be able to understand what the opportunities are, and then the process would go to the planning board because it's age restricted multi-use development to manage the project and make sure that anything that, if it's a mixed-use development like that, that it stays within the rules of our bylaws. If we choose to do the municipal, if we don't like the RFPs, we don't have to accept them. We can get 10 offers in and we can say none of these fit our needs, these don't work for us. But guess what? We have a senior community center that we think does meet our needs and we want to move ahead to that project. The municipal building use is not impacted by rezoning this land. Any municipal building, I believe, can be put on regardless of zoning, so we're not impacting that original idea that people have talked about. Personally, side thing, not the rules, but when we did the senior community center, I'm looking at Phil, the gentleman across the way, we actually talked about this as a great complementary use because the building itself was approximately, I think, 3 acres, and that left us about 17. So we thought it makes sense to not only have a municipal building put on that lot, but the downward slope, downward half, we should be looking to develop that for more commercial or housing. It makes sense. So there's a lot of different machination that can go on here. But the process, the original question is, we need to authority to go forward with an RFP. We then the select board would accept the RFPs if it made sense. And then the planning board would manage the process forward to make sure it stays within the bylaws of the town.
Thank you. Did we have, I saw the gentleman over there get up. If you want, people can stand by the microphone if you want to speak so I can get a sense. So I'll have the gentleman on my left go.
Phil Sipley, 7 Nelson Court. My question is similar to one I had probably 10 years ago, when we were going to rezone this parcel for some sort of commercial or some sort of housing. But we didn't have a plan. We didn't have anything more than a couple of ideas. And if we had more concrete planning or possibilities of companies who would partner with us, we could have a special town meeting relatively easily, or in November, to say that I've got a commercial operation that says this is viable. Then we'd be voting for something just rather than an arbitrary, go out, let's look at this and see what we can come up with. I agree with the previous speaker. We did talk about affordable housing or age-restricted housing and complemented with a senior center. I think that's an excellent idea. Traditionally, though, what we found in studies with our current architect is that it's not an offset cost to the senior center, so you're not offsetting those costs. They won't build you a senior center to buy the 55 lots. So I'd like to have a plan before we move forward. I like the idea of using this land. It's been sitting there for too long. But I think we need a broader plan before we execute.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Gentleman on my right.
Jay Ross, 17 Washington Street, also a member of the planning board. I also represented the lone no vote on the articles of the warrant. Not because I have a super passionate vision for this property, but because I felt I needed to represent the will of the people. As previously mentioned, this parcel has been up in front of the people several times, and it's been rejected each time, with the main reason being that it was to be used for municipal uses, because that's why we acquired it. I did not feel that selling the land to a developer was a good municipal use of the property, although there certainly are some benefits to that, but I didn't think it was what the people were looking for. So we also have several other properties in town designated as RMUDs. One of them on Hastings Street, another one further down the road, and another further down the road. So it's three properties, I think I have that right, that are already designated for RMUD. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we're next.
Hi, I'm Deb Flanagan, 93 North Ave. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my father, so he told me what to say. He's 39 North Ave, Dennis Shane. So he says, unfortunately he couldn't be here, but in 2005, he said the old half orchard was bought by the town of Mendon to preserve the land and prevent development to maintain Mendon's idyllic center of town, which ultimately sets us apart from other neighboring towns. And my feeling is, yeah, that makes sense, right? What is the future of Mendon? What do we want it to look like? And what is changing the zoning to, right? I don't know, it kind of leaves it a little bit open-ended. We're really not sure, right? So, in addition, the selectmen at the time didn't want to paint themselves in the corner by putting a stricter restriction on the land. So it was left for future municipal use. And, for example, if the school needs to expand its septic, right? Where's that going to happen? I don't know. Just reading what he said. So should this vote pass, the town will sell the land, it will be developed, and then it will lose yet another piece of itself. So once it's gone forever. It cannot be replaced. The motion to change this zoning should be turned down in his opinion.
Thank you. Right. Gentleman on my left.
Mike Craker, 16 Colonial Drive. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to have the verbiage of the original from the on the slides. I believe one of the bullet points was the original vote about what this was purchased for. I don't know.
Can we bring that back up?
Everything. Okay. The warrant article identified open space preservation, future municipal purposes, affordable housing, residential and commercial development as intended uses. This is the verbiage directly from when the vote was taken. The only thing that is being discussed here is one of the items within that list. So this was originally purchased with the intent of all of these opportunities. So I know that there's lots of feelings of what this was only purchased for, but the truth of the matter is up there. This is what was voted for. This is what passed at the town meeting. This is what the warrant article read. So age-restricted use is clearly falling within the realm of residential and commercial development as an intended use. So to say that this is not an intended use is actually not in line with the warrant article that was passed when this was originally written.
Thank you. Gentleman on the right.
My daughter 32 address. I just want to address the previous speaker. I actually agree with the idea that we should have a plan. Unfortunately, unless we reapply new zoning, we are going to be hamstrung in developing what that plan would be. So once again, this is the first step to gather information, understand opportunities, so that we then can make an informed decision about what the best municipal use is, because I think we all agree a municipal use is driving a municipal need.
It's pretty clear from the master plan what our multiple needs are. So, and it's not always just the municipal building. So, but I do think we need to rezone so we can explore opportunities and give everybody more information on what the possibilities are.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right is next.
Mr. Moderator, Ken O'Brien, 6 Swandale Drive. I was the chairman of the Board of Selectmen when the town meeting purchased the property back in 05, 06. And I want you to know that the original parcel that we were looking to purchase was the green area on the west side of the river. The landowner said, for X amount of more dollars, I'll sell you everything over there, which is all the stuff on the right, or the east side of the river, which has been the commercial stuff that was developed. So when I made the presentation, yes, I made the presentation to town meeting back then, and made promise that folks that whatever was going to be done with the properties was always going to come back to town meeting to get your permission to do that as such. So the commercial side took some time, but yes, we found out that through RFPs and other kinds of things that a solar farm would have been a great idea out there. The town was renting it for 20 years, make a lot of money off of it. And then there was the section in front, which took longer to have developed. Many ideas out there to include a grocery store, all sorts of things were talked about for that section. And finally, it became storage. So therefore, the commercial side of that property that we were talking about, if to buy and develop, has been developed and is done. The left side of the river, the west side of the river, is all the green land that you see there. And we promised at town meeting that it would stay for future municipal purposes, whether it be a school, a town hall, a senior center, whatever the case may be. We were also talking about fire stations and police stations that we're going to do. The idea of all this stuff of affordable housing, and by the way, I am a proponent of affordable housing, just not here on this particular site. It's the last big, giant, open, green space that you have coming into the entrance of the town through Hopedale. What a view. And when you change that view, what do you have? A changed view forever. It's not like it has been for the last 300 or so years. Yeah, but we've owned it for a while. It's okay that we haven't been in a rush to change it, because that's a big, beautiful piece of land. We need to do something for municipal purposes. Affordable housing is not a municipal purpose. Making it a multi-functional use property, commercial, that was not a municipal purpose. So if you change the zoning, that's only step one. To have it changed. When you might be sleeping one day and not know about the next step that's going to happen. So I like to say, let's not change what it looks like. Thank you very much.
All right, we have a gentleman on my left who wants to speak.
Mike Krager, 16 Colonial Drive. I appreciate the previous speaker's history, but I would have suggested that that previous select board had worded the intent of the article, such as meeting the story that was being told. So I would recommend that we focus on the residential development piece of this. I'd like to reference the fiscal 26 revenue composition for the town of Mendon. $21,493,688.13 of our revenue is generated from property taxes. We just voted to continue to invest in our school systems. There are more investments that need to be made. This town costs a lot of money to operate, to work with. We don't have a lot of businesses. The only place that we are getting revenue right now is property taxes. Putting this zoning restriction on allows the select board and others to generate other opportunities. It's about information and data collection so that we can start to increase this number beyond $21 million, so that we can start to afford the things that we need. So we keep voting to spend our money to take property off the tax rolls to reduce this overall input number. We spend money to do that. This allows us to have an opportunity to increase this number so that we are hitting our wallets less, which is an intention in the warrant article as written, as it was voted upon, and all of the discussion around future municipal purposes, absolutely 100% true. One of the many items listed for the use in the warrant.
Mr. Moderator, I'm Phil Carroll, Bryan, still 6 Longdale Drive. Thank you very much, sir. I just would like to clarify the previous speaker's comments. I believe I had already addressed the issue about affordable housing, residential, commercial development as intended uses on the east side of the property past the river, not the west side. And I stated it then, and I'll state it again, and I'm done talking.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
I'm just going to say, people are welcome to speak to add new points. We're going to start reiterating the same point. I'm going to start to wrap up the discussion.
Mike Rager, 60 Colonial Drive. I will, to the previous speaker's response, that is not outlined in the article, so therefore that detail is out.
Yeah, you heard that.
Mr. Moderator, if there's any question about what the chairman of the board of selectmen said that particular night, then I would recommend everybody go back and look at everything that was done. Talk to people who were there. How many people are here tonight that were there that night? Everybody raise your hand? Did I not promise that? Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, my microphone's not working, but point of information, the motion at the October 2004 special town meeting said approximately 30 acres shall be used for affordable housing, residential, and commercial development. Just out of the total 76 acres being discussed, 30 in the motion were for affordable housing, residential, and commercial.
Thank you. All right. If we have new points, you have a new point. You have a new point.
No, this moderator, the discussion here is the difference of the intention of what that is versus I being the guy that said it. And that was that all of the commercial development was to take place in space that has already been developed.
Sir, we've heard your perspective.
Well, then
and we
don't
appreciate
say anything around other than the truth.
All right. Sir, you've put your perspective out there, and thank you, but we're going to move to other points. You have a new point, sir.
I'm just going to do a conclusion from my perspective.
Okay.
And what I'd like everyone to think about is 20 years ago.
Where are you from?
My daughter's Reesewood Drive.
Thank you.
Previous speaker makes a good point on the intended use of the specificity that was outlined. I'm not going to argue that point. I will say this, though. It's been 20 years. The town has changed. The town has needs. And I think what we're doing as a select board is investigating all avenues to address the feedback we're getting on commercial development, housing stock. Our affordable housing is approximately 1.8%, so we're not in the state aid in terms of that 40B people wanted to stop 20 years ago, that can still come in, right? So what we're trying to do is address the number of needs the same way. I would ask people just to consider where we are today, tonight, our needs today that have changed over the last 20 years to say, do we want to rethink or repurpose what was voted on 20 years ago?
Thank you for your point. Any other discussion, new discussion? Okay. On that note, open this vote. I must note that since this is a change to zoning bylaws, this is going to be a 2/3 vote. while we're thinking of the future, when we get to the end of the meeting, please make sure that you turn this in. Because I will not wait 20 years to reiterate what I said. I will come and find you and get this back. And I did not mean that, I was just trying to make a comment. I didn't mean that as any sort of shade or anything like that. But no, but seriously, turn these in at the end of the night. I'm going to close the vote now. The vote failed, 90 to 82. Right, Article 26.
Eric Hodge, 3 Bay Street, member of the planning board. I move that the town vote to amend Mendon zoning bylaws, Article 5, Section 503, the flood hazard overlay district, comply with FEMA regulations and NFIP eligibility by removing the old Section 503 and replacing it with the new Section 503 as available online and at the town clerk's office. And I'll invite Dylan, our town planner, to speak along.
Second. Okay, do you have discussion? We have a slideshow, I believe. No slideshow. No slideshow, just discussion.
I'm Dylan, I'm the assistant planner. So this is new regulations from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. You are already a member of the NFIP, which allows any homeowner to get flood insurance for their home. If you have flooding issues, you can get flood insurance for your home. FEMA updated the regulations recently. Almost every town in Massachusetts is an NFIP community, and almost every town in Massachusetts is trying to pass this right now through their town meetings. There are updates. They are significant enough that we decided to just take out the old and put in a new. I have to say that the changes don't affect anyone unless you're actually building in the floodplain itself. And those regulations are already in the building code. So I hope it doesn't affect anyone to a great deal, but I welcome anyone to come and speak if it's trusted. Yeah.
Any weighing in from the town? Okay, I don't see anyone. Since this is a zoning bylaw change, this will require a 2/3 majority. I'm going to open the vote now. Okay, vote is closed. Motion passes. And I'm just going to put it out there, this is actually not related to the flickers. Some of the other boards, planning board, Concom, CPC, please make sure you get me your signed motions. Thank you. Article 27.
I move that the town vote to approve the establishment of a stabilization account for the Blackstone Valley Vocational Regional School District pursuant to MGL Chapter 71, Section 16G.5.
Second. Discussion?
This was placed on the warrant at the request of DBT. The select board does not directly have discussion about this, but would encourage DBT to come discuss.
Dr. Fitzpatrick, also, do we have the Finance Committee? Do you have a recommendation?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee in a 6 yay to 1 nay vote recommends supporting the article.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, citizens of Mendon, it's my pleasure to address you and to share additional information. On Wednesday, March 12th at 3:21 in the afternoon, I sent over a communication requesting this on behalf of my school committee, including a rationale which unfortunately is not included in the description that is in the warrant. That description then and now reads, the article seeks no fiscal appropriation The creation of a stabilization account is consistent with standard accounting classification practices. It provides additional flexibility as encouraged by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, the Regional School District Treasurer, independent auditors, and the Massachusetts Regional Schools Organization. The establishment of a stabilization account is a common practice among the regional schools in Massachusetts. Let me also add a couple of comments. So far, 2 of your member towns have voted on this action. They, unlike the Red Sox, were 2 for 2. Okay, so that, they're both were favorable. Clearly, you saw the benefit of investing and protecting the school systems in very well-detailed presentations relative to the age of building and the wear and tear. Your vocational technical school building is actually older, so we have no limits to the number of repairs. We're willing to take on many of these with our own students, but we need the monies to do that. Last night, the town of Upton approved this. I also alert you that the question was raised, why now? It's not because I'm retiring. Right? It's because the federal government is consistently changing the revenue streams, and the district has seen the logic and the prudence of creating additional savings accounts to address this. Mendon, in fact, previously created a stabilization account for the Mendon Upton system. So you saw the wisdom of doing that back in 2019 or 18, in that vintage, well, during the time I served as superintendent. So we asked for the same opportunity that's granted to the Mendon Upton system for the vocational technical school system that I received multiple communications from citizens here saying thanks for the work that we've done, whether it be the drafting designs that we did for the police department or so many other projects. These are great experiences for our students, and we're glad to give back to the community. We now ask you to support us. I'd like to thank the Finance Committee for their favorable support. And I'd like to say, lastly, I've served you for 31 years. This is my 32nd year. I've never given you bad advice, and I'm not giving you bad advice now. I encourage you to support this and join the other communities to see the wisdom of creating an additional savings account. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion from town?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
This didn't come up at BBT's presentation of their budget to the select board. It came 7 days later. So the select board didn't have the benefit of the presentation that the Finance Committee did. The select board did not vote to support this article. As the school district operates, they have what's called excess and deficiency, which is their equivalent of free cash, which is equivalent to 5%, they're capped at 5% of their operating budget each year. So as they have a surplus, as we talked about in free cash, and they should run a surplus, just like we should, they're allowed to keep that in excess and deficiency and use that for investments into, plow back into capital projects and balance next year's budget. This stabilization fund is also capped at 5% of their overall revenue or overall budget for the year, which means they have the ability to keep up to 10% of their excess. The questions that I had asked the FinCom that I still don't quite know the answer to, so I'd like to ask them tonight too. What flexibility does this account give you that END currently doesn't? And that current gift, grant, and donation funds don't work for you? Explain the difference between that. And then you say it's seek no fiscal appropriation right now. Is it your intent, is it your stated intent to town meeting that the assessment from BBT in years going forward will not, from BBT to Mendon, will not include an appropriation to stabilization or a reserve for transfer to stabilization or anything of the like?
Mr. Moderator, to respond to that question?
Yes, you may.
Keep in mind I'm retiring, but it is my plan to recommend to the school committee that they support this particular account if it continues to be supported by the member towns with donations and fundraising and not assessments. Also, since the baton is changing or the responsibilities of the superintendent are transferring to Anthony Steele, who joins me here, he has a list of some of the projects and things that would be used by this account and only by this account to make improvements in the building. May he summarize the list, Mr. Mark?
Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, citizens of Mendon, Anthony Steele, Assistant Superintendent Principal currently, and as of July 1, will be taking over for Dr. Fitzpatrick. Thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight to answer some of the questions here. Up to this point, we have essentially used excess and deficiency, as Mr. Stoll has pointed out. Our building is about exactly the same age as the one you're sitting in today. So over the years, at least my time, 28 years at Valley Tech, we have basically maintained and sustained the health of our own building with that current model. 2 times, I believe it was back in about 2001, we did a renovation and with unanimous support from the towns. Some 20 years later, last year you did support us for a bond to do our roof and our HVAC systems, very much like you saw with the Mersey system. So you can see that Valley Tech is somewhat on the same age and cycle, if you will, as all of the schools in this town. What we are facing in the future is we have always planned ahead, first of all, so we have a very succinct, clear capital improvement plan and repair plan. Things going on right now, we're working on a walk-in cooler for the milk and things like that for the students. We have a foundation site work going on for additional storage for our vocational programs. We have paving that needs to be done in some of our areas. HVAC equipment upgrades. We did just successfully get a grant for $1.25 million to renovate culinary arts from the state, capital skills. However, it requires we match $400,000 in order to get that. And so we have, systematically gone through. That's just a sample of some of the things that are on the very short list here. But what we're finding is that, as Mr. Stoll pointed out, we can basically carry 5% of our total budget. That would max out at about $1.6 million. Our highest achievement ever has been $1.4 million. Typically, a normal year, we carry about $800,000 in E&D. As we look at that, you may or may not know, over the last 20 years or so, we've historically come to the end of the year. We take about $250,000 of that E&D and put it towards the member town assessments. So that leaves you with about $500,000 or so, okay? Maybe $600,000, in that range. We, in a 65-year-old building like this one, don't feel very comfortable starting this school year with less than $500,000 in excess and deficiency. It's designed for emergencies. A boiler goes down, a hot water heater, a leak, and so forth. And so essentially what that's left us is the ability to have $100,000, $200,000, sometimes in a good year, maybe $500,000. The problem we face, not only with the known capital improvements, but you're essentially limited to, or what I'm finding, is that you can't do a whole lot with that kind of money. You very well may wind up either foregoing it with this capital stabilization account will allow us to do is save purposely to identify projects we want to do and not just rely on emergency money or our ability to generate excess and deficiency, but to plan ahead, save, consistent with what our treasurer, auditors, etc. have recommended. And that's the plan. So we hope you can support us in doing that and continue our method of maintaining our own building. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on this? Looks like we have somebody, the Finance Committee and the Select Board. Some other folks coming down too, it looks like. Oh, no, you're not, okay.
Mike Gardner, 16 Colonial Drive. Some of my concern is in the way that we operate and the difference between MRSA and with BPT. There are 13 communities who all help govern decisions that are made within this budget. In the Finance Committee meeting, we did discuss some added verbiage about how this fund can be addressed. That verbiage is not there. While previous discussions in the night can highlight the differences between feelings and opinions that were addressed and how we're going to approach things versus words that are written down in warrant articles, I am concerned that at some point in the future, there could be a method that we don't agree with of how this gets funded, and if 7 or 9 of those other communities all agree with it and we don't as a community, there's nothing we can do about it. I still have yet to hear anything that says they don't already have the vehicles to do exactly what they want to do. They have a significant E&D fund that they can build up and continue to save in that method. So they can still make the same exact decisions they want to make with 5% of their budget as a savings account. So I have not heard a sufficient level of justification to increase that to be 10% of the operating budget as a savings account, especially given the differences and the difficulties of how those budgets get managed and the amount of inputs that need to come into that and Mendon's weight in those decision-making processes.
Thank you.
My daughter, 32, would drive. I think it's best practice to have stabilization accounts, so I understand the case being made by previous speakers. The challenges that previous speakers have made in terms of funding, whether it be federal or state level, that impacts everyone. Municipality, every school district. So as I look at this, it's not so much the creation of an account, which is what this article will do, it's the funding of that account. Had we had a chance to discuss this prior to, during the budget meeting, I might have suggested that the funding of this account be codified so that it is just third parties. We heard that from the previous speaker. Great, grants, etc. But I think we need to mitigate the appropriation process to the town where we have a number of parties with fiscal constraints. We've got a capital program, MURSD has a capital program, Blackstone Valley has a capital program. We need to be very careful how we allocate our funds to these different needs. So I think without that certainty on how this account will be funded, I would recommend that we do not establish the account at this time. I would be open to revisiting in a year's time when we get more specifics on the method of appropriation for the account.
Mr. Moderator, may I address the questions embedded in those presentations?
Yes, thank you.
First of all, as the motion reads, it talks about the Mass General laws. Within the Mass General laws is a specification that this money must be used for capital. So it's not, it's within the motion, but you have to go over it. People more familiar with the Mass General laws to recognize it. Secondly, in the words of Mike Amendola, support as the Finance Committee endorsing our project. So the one thing about having a savings account, what's better is having a second savings account. Frankly, in today's economic expenses, right, that as my new superintendent identified, the cost of making improvements, even if our students do them themselves, are significant. You can see the inflation of materials. We're willing to fix our building the best we can. We just want your permission to be able to have an account, to raise money, to be able to draw from that to make self-improvements. In the same way which we've done projects for you. I encourage you to support this and recognize the logic of doing it.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. Moderator, if I may, I'm not sure that I heard answers to what I asked, so I guess I'll ask one of them again. Will this require an appropriation from the town to fund this account in the future? And the second is that you referenced, and I think rightly so, all the needs that an aging building, all the capital needs, and compare that to the MURSD capital needs and how they came and presented a debt authorization specific to those capital needs, and town meeting got to vote on each individual need and say, yes, we support this. I would like to know BBT's thoughts on approaching capital in a way consistent with MURSD versus in the way outlined by this request for a stabilization fund.
Mendon owns a 6% ownership in the 13-town district. I think it's a benefit to have 12 other towns that contribute. In fact, contribute 94% of the cost in that example alone. It is the intention of this plan, as recommended by the treasurer, to have an account to raise money and have a place to store it, but there's no appropriation whatsoever in FY26 for this budget. In fact, there's no debt request for FY26. Our roof repair project has been approved by the Mass School Building Authority at 55% reimbursement. Right? And that's already cleared because you and the other 12 towns voted unanimously in support of that roof project. Yet we are drawing additional money. We're funding $250,000 of the first phases of the planning, the schematics, and other of the roof project from excess efficiency. We can only draw these accounts to the point where they're almost exhausted right? This creates, as Mike Amarillo saw the benefit of, an additional savings account to better allow us to respond to the needs of the building for capital purposes only, and not used for raises. The teachers recognize fully, the school committee recognizes fully, this is not on the bargaining table to be offered for raises or bonuses. This is for capital improvements or repairs that would need to be made to your school building, rather than asking an alternative way to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to know why you didn't present it like NURSD presented with their capital. And you had said pointedly that this requires no fiscal 26 appropriation. Is it the district's expectation to require an additional appropriation in future years?
Again, I don't know how appropriate it is for me to speak for future years when I'm retiring, but in any case, it would be my recommendation, okay, that the school district look for alternatives rather than asking for assessments to feed and store money in this account. And that's one of the reasons we received the support, I think, of the Finance Committee in the magnitude, not just this Finance Committee, but multiple Finance Committees. That is the plan. That is the design. Yet the needs of improvement exceed the current reserves.
Mike Rager, 16 Colonial Drive. I think the previous speaker made the point that I was trying to make. It is simply a verbalized recommendation of a funding source for this account. I still have yet to hear any answers, and it's been constantly danced around of how we can guarantee the funding of this account is only through grants and other funds that don't come from appropriating budgets that are going to come from our wallets.
Mr. Moderator, through you, that the improvements need to be made in one form or another. This is the avenue we've offered and suggested, as recommended by the professionals involved, to have an account to acquire the materials and equipment, okay, and in some cases maybe subcontracting depending on the nature of the work. Certainly we don't put any students at risk. We're willing to do most of these improvements ourselves, but we need money in the account to do that. We have the capital planning group in our system has a lengthy list, okay, of improvements and repairs that are needed. To no surprise, okay, of a building of our age. This is how we would address it, and this is an account to draw. Otherwise, we're going to ask for it in special warrant articles in the future, or in capital requests in the future. This is an alternative way to do it. We don't want to go with the add-ons to special warrant articles.
Is this a new question?
I'm not asking a question, making a
Or-
statement.
Okay.
So, but it is a follow-on to what I just heard, and I just want to make sure people understand that if it is through appropriations in the budgetary process, our town is, and I think the previous speaker made this point, our town is going to be at the whims of 12 other towns. So whether we approve of the allocation or not, if we vote it down and the other towns put it in, we need to find that money somewhere, which is why going through the appropriation process adds risk to our financial operations. If it were a debt exclusion like MURSD did, we'd very clear we have other ways of financing it. If we go through appropriations, it's going to affect our own operational budget potentially. Once again, going back to the idea of increased revenues, we made a vote on that tonight, right? We're sort of looking for other avenues. The one you presented didn't work. But I just think the method of appropriation of funding this account is the critical question. And while I appreciate the focus on third-party funds, that's not guaranteeing that it won't come through the appropriation process of the budget. So I would ask, as I did the first time, is to not support this article and let's revisit it. So this article, this account, hopefully actually voted on this, I believe, a year ago. So this is not new, it's just new amendment. Other towns have seen this before us. So I would ask, vote it down, let's talk about the appropriation process more specifically, possibly codify appropriation to be third party, not through the budget process, and see if we can move this forward, because stabilization account's a good idea. It's the appropriation, how it gets funded, that's the critical question that we all need to decide.
We've heard a lot of back and forth on this between the select board and PBT. I think that we've all made our points. So I am going to move this along to a vote now. on your nice clickers, and once again, want to remind you not to forget. Vote is open. Okay, I'm going to close the vote. Okay, motion failed. All right, Article 28.
I move that the town vote to transfer $50,000 from free cash to fund fire department self-contained breathing apparatus equipment.
Second. Okay, do we have the FinCom recommendation?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends that the town support Article 28.
Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Moderator, this article seeks $50,000 for self-contained breathing apparatus, as the motion stated. This is something that needs to be replaced on a known cyclical basis. This is the canisters, the face masks, everything associated with helping firefighters breathe in conditions that are otherwise unbreathable. We know this is a cost in the future. This is setting aside 1/5 of it this year, and we'll come back and do that in the next 4 years. We might have to increase it to $55,000 or $60,000 by the time we get close to purchasing it. But it smooths the purchase price out for us. The reason it wasn't on the consent calendar is because this is a little weird of an approach. This is not an approach that this town meeting has seen recently, so I wanted to take this time to explain it. My anticipation that annual town meeting, the special town meeting next time this comes up, that it will be on the consent calendar, and you all know about it now. I will say, in 2 other communities in which I worked, we used this exact process for this exact type of purchase because the life cycle is so well known, and you can easily plan for it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, I am going to open the vote. Okay, vote is closed. Motion passes. Okay. Article 29, Conservation Commission.
Carl Humble, Chair of the Conservation Commission, 15 Misco Road. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 28 Wetlands Protection Bylaw of the Windsor General Bylaws by removing the existing Chapter 28 Wetlands Protection with the new Chapter 28 Wetlands Protection as available online and at the town clerk's office.
Thank you. Discussion, or do I have a second? Thank you. Discussion?
Hi, Isabella Genova, Conservation Agent. I work with the commission and we kind of went through the wetland protection bylaw. A lot of this is administrative and language changes. There are no jurisdictional changes proposed in the bylaw. We still don't have our 2025 no build and 50, or 25 no disturb and 50-foot setbacks. A few of the things that are changed for language are beneficial to both staff, commissioners, engineers, consultants, and residents who want to read the bylaw and be able to understand it. It more closely follows the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions model bylaw that's available. They're a nonprofit that helps conservation commissions, the conservation commissions in Massachusetts. A few of the changes, for example, citations to wrong Mass General laws. We want 7 hard paper copies, and then a few other things. Changing the abutter notifications to 300 feet. That follows zoning board and planning board abutter procedures. Some people get notified if there's a zoning variance because they would hit the 300 feet but not the 100 feet in the Wetland Protection Act. So this would increase, and typically only picks up 1 or 2 properties, and make sure everyone gets notified at the same time. Another change is security bonds, and this is another tool in the toolbox for the commission It's very unlikely that this would be used, but it would be in coordination with bonds with the planning board for large subdivisions or large developments. Examples of this where planning board uses a bond is if there's a subdivision in the road and they need to make sure this town is able to finish the road if the developer leaves. The commission might utilize this if there's a large detention basin in the jurisdictional area of a wetland resource, or if there's a large replication area required. Another example of this is the open space subdivision, that there were encroachments into open space areas. If the commission had a bond, we want to be able to utilize that as another mechanism in the toolbox. So that's one of the bigger suggestions that I made to the commission, and ultimately they all agreed. Yeah.
Thank you. Any discussion from the town? All right, I see none. So I am opening up the vote. I'm going to close the vote now. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to Article 30.
I would move that the town vote to amend the Mendon General Bylaws, Chapter 2, Section 14, to allow electronic voting at town meeting by adding the underlined language as set forth below. When a question is put, the consensus of the meeting shall be determined by electronic tabulations and electronic devices to tabulate town meeting votes. And here's the addition. If electronic tabulation is not available or a vote of the town meeting chooses not to use it, the determination of the vote shall be by the following process. The voices of the voters and the moderator shall declare the vote as it appears to him. If the moderator is unable to decide the vote by sound of the voices, or if his decision is immediately questioned by 7 or more voters rising in their places for that purpose, he shall determine the vote by ordering a show of hands, and he may appoint tellers to make and return the count.
Second. Thank you. I think we want some discussion on this. Carl?
Carl Hummel. This time I'm speaking as Vice Chair of the new Mendon General Bylaws Review Commission. I'm the Vice Chair. The chair is up there, and we figured it would make more sense if I was down here and he stayed up there instead of going back and forth. For a while now, we've been using these wonderful technological devices to speed up town meeting votes. However, the black letter language of the bylaws doesn't say anything about electronic voting. So this amendment will bring our bylaws into the 21st century and provide the statutory authority instead of it being done at the discretion of the moderator.
Thank you. I'm saying it better myself. So I think we have some more discussion.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator. The change, if we can go back to the Word document, the change actually starts at the first electronic on the second line. So it inserts electronic, and then it says if electronic is not available, and then the rest of the bylaw is as it stands right now. So that's enough to say that all red text there is what
change. Thank you, Hank. Yeah.
Hi, Elizabeth Black, 7 Pinehill Road. I'm just wondering if the wording in this can be changed to be gender neutral because the moderator.
Well, so actually, there Article 33 is addressing the gender neutral throughout the entire bylaws. So Article 33, we actually is an article that's going to address the entire body of bylaws to make them all gender neutral. So the thought was that if this passed, and taking off my moderator hat, putting on my chair of the General Bylaw Review Committee hat for a second. My name is Tom Morale. I'm from 52 Millville Road here in Mendon. The thought was if one of these passes and the other one fails, they're separable so that they're in line with the bylaws in totality.
And if you care about things like that, And your idea of a good time is spending 2 evenings a month talking about black letter and language.
And spending time with myself and Carl.
We have openings, and if you're interested, you'll know exactly where to look on the town website to find the procedure to get yourself on the committee.
Thank you, thank you. All right. It's a great pitch. So, I believe that any more discussion from townspeople? All right, I'm going to open the vote on these nice electronic voting tabulators that we could very well be putting in our bylaws. And we'll definitely be putting in the bin at the end of the night, too. All right, I'm going to close the vote. Motion passes. Woo! That's not. All right, now we can finally use electronic voting in town meeting, guys. Article 31.
I move that the town vote to amend the Mendon General Bylaws, Chapter 2, Section 2, to amend the town election date by removing the stricken language and adding the underlined language as set forth below. The annual town meeting for the election of town officers and the determination of such matters as required by law to be elected or determined by ballot shall be held on the third Tuesday in May.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
Article 15, Misco Road, Vice Chair of the GDRC.
Please. Thank you.
Last year, the Select Board put forward an amendment to the bylaws to allow town meeting to be scheduled anytime in the first 2 weeks. However, that created an inconsistency and a gap with the possibility and a conflict with the date specified in the Article Section 2 of Chapter 2. This amendment fixes the date. And I'll take a brief moment to say the reason why the GDRC was created was to avoid exactly this kind of problem where people make a change to one part of the bylaws and don't see how it gets carried through to the others. We're also available as a resource for people who want to come forward with citizen petitions to amend the bylaws. We're working on noise ordinance with Chief Kersey. We've reached out to Ann Mazar and her committees on land use, and we're helping them with language. So for the next couple of years at the end of town meetings, we'll have a nice, happy time to clean up our paperwork and bring this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm opening the vote.
Wait.
Okay, I'm closing the vote. All right. Motion passes. Third Tuesday it is. All right. Article 32. Okay, we have a motion.
Yes, the Mendon Select Board recommends that the town meeting pass over Article 32 of the town meeting warrant for May 2nd, 2025, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion?
So this was brought to, this is about changing the prohibition on employment for formerly elected officials in town. It's a long article that also has a couple of other stipulations. The general bylaws review committee brought something forth to select board. Select board wanted to delve into it a little bit more. It's something we're committed to having a change on, but just the timing didn't work out for this cycle. So I anticipate it will come to town meeting at a future date, but where it stands right now, select board recommendations to pass over.
Thank you. So, any discussion from town about passing it over? No? Okay. Let's take a vote on this. Vote is now open. Okay, I'm going to close the vote. Motion passes. Article 33. Last but not least.
It's going to be so much more pleasant on a Tuesday next May. So, last one for the night, I move that the town vote to amend the amended general bylaws to use gender-neutral language throughout.
Second.
All right, thank you. Discussion?
In a previous town meeting, we passed a warrant article to make a change from Board of Selectmen to Select Board. We are following the exact same procedure tonight, where we would go through the amended general bylaws and perform a similar cleanup.
Thank you. We have discussion from the town.
J. Cross 17 Washington Street. The way this article is written is extremely vague. As such, it might cause someone to question the intent, and it's potentially dangerous. And whatever the benefit is, it's also not clear into who that benefits. On the flip side of that, if you were to come up with a list of potential liabilities of this, it might read like this. Ways that gender-neutral language could be used to push unintended changes. Create ambiguity in legal definitions. Replacing man or woman with person might weaken gender-specific protections or expectations in law. Undermine traditional institutions. Reframing roles like husband and wife as spouses may lead to redefining family structures in town ordinances, zoning laws, and benefit programs. Pave the way for controversial policy changes. Neutral terms might make it easier to introduce gender identity-based policies, gender-neutral bathrooms, pronoun laws without directly confronting the public about their impact. Silence dissent by labeling it as discrimination. Resistance to further changes could be dismissed as hateful or anti-inclusion, limiting open debate on future proposals. Allow reinterpretation of past bylaws. Revised language might be used to reinterpret or challenge past decisions, enabling progressive activists to argue existing policies are discriminatory under the new wording. Remove clarity from enforcement roles. Gender-specific titles, policemen, firemen, being replaced with vague terms could create confusion or conflict over specific responsibilities or hiring standards. Push ideological education into schools. Changes in town bylaws could spill over into school policy, embedding gender ideology into curriculum or administrative practices. Gradual cultural shift through incremental changes. And starting with language might lead to norms being reshaped quietly until larger structural or moral changes are accepted as just the way it is now.
Thank you for your comments, sir. I actually, if it's all right, as the chair of the General Bylaw Review Committee, I would love to weigh in on this. Taking off hats, switching hats again, it's an invisible hat. Tom Raleigh, 52 Millville Road. There are several inconsistencies in our general bylaws, such as one section I can think of off the top of my head where they refer to the treasurer collector as he, where right now the treasurer collector is a woman, among others. We figured the best way to address that would be a blanket article that changes them all to be gender neutral. I can personally speak for myself. I'm not trying to do anything insidious here. I'm just trying to clean up the bylaws so that they reflect the reality of the town and the fact that these positions are held by people of not just one gender. So that is the intention, as I see it, as the chair of the General Bylaw Review Committee. But, you know, I understand that other people might have other thoughts.
I will also point out that this is the same warrant article language, the same motion language that we used when we changed from Board of Selectmen to Select Board. And we were able to do that without incurring the risks that the previous speaker laid out in his summary.
Line 60C North Ave. I might ask that we bring this, although it may be lengthy, to bring each individual change. If there's concerns from both sides of this is a pretty hot issue, that we would bring them one by one and make sure that we do them the right way. I mean, I understand what you had brought up about, you know, there being a he and the treasurer collector being a she, and it might be better that way.
All right, we have another member of town weighing in.
Please, Colleen Cormier, 11 Jewel Crossing. I just wanted to push back a little bit and say I actually think it would be dangerous not to vote in favor of this to the women that are sitting in this room and the women that hold positions in town. It is actually outrageous that we wouldn't do this to be more inclusive and representative of the body.
Thank you. Sir?
Mr. Moderator, would it be in order to discuss tabling this and then coming back with the red line in the future?
I'm going to let the people weigh in on this one. I think. Any further questions, new comments, new concerns?
Probably not Sandra 14, but the street inventory. My question would be, what would be the cost to the town to change any publications that exist and forms that exist?
I think Carl has an answer on that.
Yes, when we were holding our public meeting where we discussed this particular amendment, we looked into that and consulted with the appropriate town staff. There was a charge when we changed from Board of Selectmen to Select Board because we threw out a lot of old documents and had to print up new ones. This will only change the general bylaws. They are not printed out and handed out to people or mailed out. All this is changing bits on our website.
Thank you. And Carl, where are you from?
Same place as before, 15 Misco Road.
Thank you. I forget. All right. Any other discussion on this? All right. I'm going to open the vote. Okay, vote is closed. Motion passes. And I believe that brings us to the end of the warrant. Do we have a motion to dissolve the warrant? All right, I think that was a bunch of motions and seconds. And I think everybody says aye. Don't forget to turn your clickers in.